through different states, cities, seeing all the different accents that are spoken and how different they all are. And again, it's extremely interesting, at least to me, and to Mushroom too, because she definitely knows what I'm talking about here. And yeah, if you've ever wondered why there's so many different accents in the U.S., boom, this is the place for you. I'm gonna press play now.
Appalachia are very, very white. African Americans in Appalachia may be more likely to be rhotic. So in words like floor,
way up there on the fourth floor, floor,
you'll get the R, whereas in other places you might get flo. African Americans in Appalachia also tend to follow the more general Southern pattern with respect to I monophthongization, ah in wide turning to ah, so you get wad. And now the map tour continues with Eric.
Thank you, Nicole. We're picking up again in North Carolina. Over in the Outer Banks, there's an even more historically isolated community. Because of a shift in shipping patterns in the mid-19th century, and probably also because of sympathizing with the Northern cause in the Civil War, Ocracoke Island was relatively isolated from the mainland for a long time. It developed maybe one of the most distinctive and different dialects in North America. Obliging islanders will sometimes say to tourists, well, it's high tide on the same side. Last night the water far, night the moon shine, no fish. Ocracoke Islanders are sometimes called high tiders because of that particularly distinctive I sound. And their accent is sometimes taken to be British or Australian, even by Brits.
Yeah, I mean, for a moment there, I thought I was gonna say that, or was expecting him to say that maybe there was some type of Irish influence there as well. But no, you can definitely. I mean, if that person that wrote that read that would have read something from like Game of Thrones, I would have honestly thought that, oh yeah, like that's he's talking in like the way they used to talk back in the day. But oh, this man is making everything sound either British country or Scottish. I mean, he does fluctuate through all these different accents. Being a plain English speaker, I can definitely tell all the differences. So I can see the change when he goes from accent to accent. But yeah, I can definitely see where you would think that he's making everything sound either British country or Scottish. True. I mean, at the beginning of the video, he did say that I think it's more he's just skimming through the surface of them. But I could imagine that within that same region where one certain accent is the way it's spoken, I could imagine, like he did say, like many people in that same place could talk different types of could have different type of accent or variations of the same accent because of, you know, socioeconomic background, etc., etc. So yeah, oh, I'm loving this. I love it so much. I love it. I love learning. All right, moving on.
Truth be told, there are some similarities with some regional English accents, including that high tide vowel sound, which is similar to both southwestern English accents like Devon or Gloucestershire, and East Anglian accents like Norfolk and Suffolk, those easternmost counties of England. Curiously, another distinctive thing about the old Ocracoke accent is it's also got a real sort of bounce to it, which is something that both those southwestern and those East Anglian accents also have in common. North Carolina is actually one of the most linguistically diverse states in the country. I want to bring in Kalina Newmark now to talk about Native American English.
Hello, my name is Kalina Newmark, and I am Talita Dene First Nations from the Northwest Territories, Canada. I come from a strong line of Dene and Métis leaders who are passionate about our language and cultural teachings. The Lumbee tribe is the largest state-recognized Native American tribe in North Carolina. Lumbee speakers combine and pronounce English words that distinguish them from African American and Southern speakers. Since encountering white settlers in the mid-1800s, the Lumbee have carved out a dialect of English that is uniquely theirs. One interesting feature is that Lumbee English speakers share vowel sounds present in the Outer Banks accent, where tide is pronounced toid. You can hear that in this native speaker clip.
Well, when he got halfway, that little ditch on this side, ditch on this side, ditch on this side.
Thank you, Kalina. So that Ocracoke Island high tider accent is an accent that's disappearing fast. The younger Ocracokers tend to speak much more mainstream American English. There's a popular idea that we're losing regional accents, that people are sounding more and more similar. That's true of some people in some places, especially some of these isolated communities. But it's not true across the board. There are actually plenty of accent differences that are getting more and more distinct over time. But of course, it's a complex picture. There are parts of the South that don't have all that much Southern about them, accent-wise. Raleigh, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas are two good examples. A lot of people from those two cities may be pretty hard to identify by their accents. Which brings us to what is sometimes called General American. What's General American? The first thing is, it's not one accent. It's basically a terrible term for a wide variety of accents that essentially don't have a lot of obvious regionally distinctive features in them. We're going to talk to Sun Michaud now. Sun is a native speaker of Gullah, a fascinating and really important Creole language spoken in the Low Countries in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida.
Gullah is a language spoken in a region of the United States called the Gulligichi Cultural Heritage Corridor, which extends officially from Wilmington, North Carolina, down to Jacksonville, Florida. Gullah is an Atlantic Creole, most similar with Bohemian Creole English and Bajan Creole. In fact, when I visited the Bahamas, a bunch of the local women thought that I'd been a local too. There are a variety of factors that inform the language. For instance, the secluded plantations on the Sea Island, a mixture of African languages, as well as the accents of lower class English and Irish indentured servants and slavers. European slavers were so ill-suited for the Sea Island's environment that they would often afford long periods of solitary time to our ancestors with little to no oversight. Slavers would mismatch the languages in order to confound them and hinder their ability to organize rebellions. Now, the scheme of this tactic was designed for our Gulligichi ancestors to be forced to speak English so that their overseers could be privy to their communications. But what slavers didn't predict is that this first-generation English-based African pidgin would develop into a Creole, a fully mature rule-governed language of its own, much of which remains with us today due to generations of forced segregation and eventual separation by choice before the building of bridges that increased easy access to and fro. I'm going to walk you through a few distinct features of the Gulligichi accent. For example, the kit-foot vowels are reversed for the words fish and foot to sound like fush and fit. The lot trap vowels are reversed for God and pat to sound like gad and pot. The softening of the T's, where butter and bent would sound like butter and bean. Gullah speakers also drop consonants for vowels where the two words meet. For instance, in the sentences that gal there and that boy there, the word for there, there, adds or subtracts the D depending on if there's a consonant or a vowel preceding it. The importance of accent to the Gulligichi language simply cannot be overstated. It is the clearest bond between ourselves and other displaced Africans throughout colonized spaces in the Black diaspora. How we sound is as important as what we say, because our accent is a statement in itself. This has been your Gullah teacher, Sun Michaud. Stay safe, and as always, we out ya. Peace.
Thank you so much, Sun. So,
It's crazy how, again, I mean, and this is, it stretches from like, what is it? He said Raleigh, North Carolina, all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida. It's extremely interesting. Then I guess eventually, maybe not in this video, maybe in video 2, then we'll start going a little bit more towards like the Midwest and, you know, South, Midwest, but, you know, maybe we'll hit Louisiana and some of those there that we can obviously see the influence that is still there, you know, in regards to like accents and whatnot. Again, I appreciate everyone being here. This is an extremely interesting topic for me. I'm just very fascinated at everything that we're learning today. It's crazy.
if you're keeping count, that's 6 Southern accents already, even though we're not being remotely comprehensive here, and we've only been through a few states. Lots more to come. As we get into the piney woods belt, southern Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, and northern Florida, we get into one of the parts of the South that's always been rhotic. A lot of the South was historically non-rhotic. That's where you get this sort of Blanche Dubois, Scarlett O'Hara kind of classical Southern accent. You can hear that in this clip here.
I've always depended on the kindness of strangers.
You hear how there's no R in strangers?
Strange.
That's a non-rhotic accent. But that's changed, and changed fast over the last few decades, so that most younger white Southerners are now rhotic. In most of the Piney Woods belt, though, they always have been. Now, Nicole talked about the fact that some African American speakers in the Southern Appalachians smooth out the I diphthong, the price vowel in some words, and we get a long I sound. But in other words, it stays a diphthong, I. And this is a pattern we find in a lot of the South. In most of the Piney Woods belt, though, there's always been what we can describe as full price smoothing, where some Southerners smooth the diphthong in words like fly, rise, and ride, but use a diphthong in rice and right. Here in the Piney Woods belt, we're going to smooth them all. Fly, rise, ride, and rice, right, life, night, and so on. There's an interesting posture thing here, too, which is that you start to get tongue tips that are very edge-focused. And what I mean by that is that instead of using this part of the tongue, the blade, for things like T and D sounds, so that there's a lot of surface contact, t, duh, we just use the narrow edge of the tongue, so it's a more focused contact area, t, duh. 10 tired turtles talk about dentists. We're going to end part 1 right here, but we're going to continue this all the way across the continent. We're going to go to Chicago and Southern California, and yes, absolutely, we'll get out in a boat up in Canada. See you next time for part 2.
Wow. Slow and wide accents in these areas focus more on the mid of the mouth and the upper palate. And the way he was talking about how the tongue tip. But he had mentioned that tongue tip before. I think it was in regards to maybe more northeast. I think he was talking about like some of the New York accents in like that area that they do that tongue tip too. Wow. So the soft part behind the ridges on the top of the mouth is where the tongue goes for D's and T's. The soft part behind the ridges on the top of the mouth is where the tongue goes for. Crazy. Damn, and they made you take tests of this? That's crazy. Wow, that's so insane.